Thanks for being here today. It's a special day for us, and we're so happy to welcome everyone who is here, especially our Chancellor, Jim Malatras, who just walked in the door. But we certainly want to welcome all our athletes. We have a lot of our SUNYAC Oswego Lakers here today, and they're making us very proud. We also have Tom DiCamillo, who is the SUNYAC Commissioner, here with us today, and the SUNYAC Athletic Conference has been so amazing in getting everything together for us as we approach a big announcement for today. I want to tell you that, all of our colleagues that we have on Zoom this morning, or this afternoon, I guess we're approaching this afternoon, we all talk about our institutions, our Division III institutions, and that's what we are. We are Division III institutions. We're not Division III sports. We're Division III institutions, and that means that we really put the student athletes first. We think about them, we know where this fits into a life. And our athletes tell us, and we know this of them, that they come to us with an amazing background. They're so committed to their sport. They're so dedicated. They always have had a team around them. Most of them have played their sports almost all of their lives. They've had the inspiration of their coaches with them as well, and that is so important to them. With this pandemic, we have not been able to allow them to express that in their lives. And as we, as educators, know that putting those kinds of supports around students are the most important thing to their success. So student success is what we're all about. I know that of my colleagues as well. Division III and certainly SUNYAC and all that SUNYAC has done, I hope that most of you will have an opportunity to familiarize yourself with the kind of dedication that has gone into what's in the works today, the kind of logistics, the feasibility, the care and nurturing for the safety of all our athletes, all our coaches, and how we go forward is really important to us. And I'm going to turn this podium over for the major announcement to our wonderful Chancellor, who has taken this activity on. He's really been very much a part of getting us to where we are today. Jim Malatras.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here today. First, I'd like to thank President Stanley for hosting this event today. President Stanley is one of our gems in the system. I never want to let her go from being president of the institution, so I might start a petition that Deb Stanley has to stay here as long as I'm chancellor, but we're going to work on that for later. I'm happy to be back at Oswego. It's great to be part of the spring reopening. We're joined by many of our colleagues today. We have all of our presidents there on the Hollywood Squares, so if you stay after the event, there will be a Hollywood Squares competition. Denise Battles, the great president from Geneseo, will be the leader of the Hollywood Squares. We're also joined by Dr. John Graham, who's our student advocate, who's been helping with this event today, so we thank him. I want to thank Mike Howard, who is the governing body chair of SUNYAC and the director of athletics for Plattsburgh. I think he's on the Zoom as well. Thank you, Mike, for all that you've been doing. And then Tom DiCamillo, who is the SUNYAC commissioner. That gentleman right in the front will be answering all the very difficult questions that you may have on what we're talking about here today. And then all of our student athletes who have joined us today, including Miles Felton, who you'll hear from, who is an outfielder on the baseball team. And apropos of nothing, talk about the small world in New York. I was in Utica, New York yesterday at a high school, Thomas Proctor High School, to talk about a great initiative that we just announced on eliminating application fees for low-income students all across the state of New York. Miles happened to graduate from that high school, as did President Stanley. I don't know if this is some sort of fate that brought me here today, but it feels like this is good energy since we are all connected in that. So it's great to have Miles and all the student athletes here as well. Our student athletes have had real challenges over the past year, and they have really sacrificed for the greater good over the past year, and we owe them a real debt of gratitude for all that they've done throughout the course. They've given up a lot of their athletic eligibility because of the pandemic. They haven't been doing things that they've loved in a way, and we feel for them on this. And we know it's been tough, but they've come through, and they've done things like the Mask Up or Pack Up campaign to help keep SUNY campuses safe and communicate to their fellow students, because they are leaders on their campus, that they have to do everything in their power in order to keep our campuses safe and reopening. We are now at a different time, we hope, in a different stage of the virus. It always throws curveballs at us, but we feel like we're on a good trajectory. SUNY has been a model on how to manage the virus, and I'm proud of everything that our campus presidents who are joining us here today and President Stanley have done. We have now done nearly 1.1 million tests all across our system since the beginning of the fall semester of 2020. Our positivity rate is a 0.5 percentage point, which would be great if we were any state in the nation. Even here at Oswego, where we've had some challenges, doing a great job this semester. Nearly 8,000 tests, 0.16% positivity rate. Just think about that. We are keeping the virus under control on our campuses. Now let's try to do more to reopen our campuses in more meaningful ways for our students, and that testing allows us to do just that. On January 20th, I asked the SUNYAC presidents, President Bitterbaum, who sort of is the de facto head for our presidents, to consider and develop a plan to get our athletics back going for SUNYAC campuses in particular. And today I'm happy to announce that after a lot of hard work for the past month, where our folks really did convene, more than 50 folks all across the system, to develop a smart and sensible plan, that on March 20th, we will resume athletic competition for SUNYAC, which is great. We're going to be focusing on intermediate, low-risk sports, spring sports. We're going to be restarting baseball, softball, lacrosse, tennis, track, and field. And that's really exciting news for us today. It's great to have that competition come back. I know we can do it. We're going to take a couple of enhanced protocols to make sure we can keep our competition going throughout the course of the spring. First, we're going to split basically the conference into an east-west region so we can limit the amount of travel and overnight stays. We're still very concerned about our student athletes. They're our number one priority when it comes to their health and safety. We want to limit that. We can have the commission and others talk about scheduling. We're going to work in some double headers, things like that, so we can get as much competition as possible. We're going to require that our athletes wear masks at all times, except for when they're in the heat of the competition. Our staff, our coaches, they'll all be masked up the entire time, but as well as our athletes, except for when they're in the middle of competitive play. We're not allowing spectators right now at our competitions because right now New York State policy says there's no spectators. We are hopeful, though, that if this goes well as we stand this up, that we could eventually get some of our spectators back, because I think that enthusiasm is important as well. And quite frankly, I want to go see some athletic competition, especially my son. We are going to continue our regular testing. We require, of course, every one of our students, faculty, and staff be tested at every one of our campuses weekly. That's probably one of the most aggressive testing protocols that any university system has in the nation. We're going to build a little more into this for our student athletes. They're going to get tested within 3 days of competition so we can better monitor those conditions of our student athletes to make sure they're not unknowingly spreading the virus. Busing and transportation, conveyance is an important thing for us as well. There's going to be not going to be any eating, masks, or no eating on the buses during travel. Masks have to be worn at all times when athletes are traveling, and we're going to limit the capacity in our buses so it's spread out. And the thing that's the toughest part, I think, in all of this that we've all been facing as a matter of social interaction, which is a really important part of the good-natured, competitive nature of college athletics. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do group celebrations, handshakes with other teams, post-interaction with other teams, because it's just too risky. That's unfortunate, because I think that's a really important part of team building, also part of working together among our various campuses, but hopefully that we'll be able to be brought back to normal for all of us as this virus goes away, as we're vaccinating folks all across our state. The final piece to all of this is all dependent on us. We will keep competition going as long as our positivity rate remains low. If we see problems with our positivity rate, we will suspend competition, because in the end, that's our number one concern. Likewise, we'll take aggressive actions if there are positive cases among our athletes, or symptomatic cases among our athletes. This is something that we're going to have to monitor, and there's going to be times potentially where some of our teams won't be able to play because of that. But I'm hopeful with these protocols in place, we'll be able to resume this in an effective manner. I thank everything that the SUNYAC has done. I really thank our presidents for stepping up in a big way. They have had a lot to do over the past year on keeping their campuses safe, getting their campuses reopening. But this is an important and an exciting step for us all. It's great to be able to resume some of our core academic and athletic activities on our campuses. You feel our campuses coming back to life in real and meaningful ways. And I just know, you just see these student athletes here, they're excited. You can feel the energy when you walk into the room. Let's get them back on the field. Let's see how this goes, and then hopefully we can expand this to other of our athletic activities as well. So with that, I will now turn it over, I don't know who's speaking next, to our great student, Miles, to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Chancellor. I want to thank the Chancellor, the President Stanley, and everybody else who has been involved in this deliberation. We know it wasn't an easy decision that you guys had to come to, but we are, I would say, me and my teammates and all the athletic community are beyond excited for this opportunity to get the chance to play this semester. With me being a senior, it was kind of tough last year, not being able to get a chance to play, but now that we get a chance to play this year, it is a great bit of information and news that we got. I'm excited to play against our SUNYAC competition, and we're ready to play a season this year. Thank you, sir.
Just to get the competitive spirits flowing, Miles told me when I walked in that the Oswego baseball team is going to mop up the league this year. Now, I don't know if that's true. Those sound like fighting words to me. I think President Christian and New Paltz should take offense at those very aggressive words at Oswego, but we'll see as they get on the field and how they all do. Questions? This is great. Sir? Well, I think our campuses have done a phenomenal job doing regular testing every week of all of our faculty, students, and staff now. I think over the last 2 weeks, we've demonstrated it. We've done something like, we've conducted more than 220,000 tests all across the system, so that will be an ongoing process. I think they're going to work out, like they do scheduling for all of our students right now, to make sure that testing's happening around the competition for those student athletes, so it's closer to the competitive date for those students. So I think that's been worked out like a well-oiled machine, quite frankly, at SUNY. I think we have highly sophisticated scheduling operations here. We have testing operations that I think are second to none. I think we've demonstrated that we can do regular testing pretty well. The second piece on the funding, we've received federal stimulus money, and one of the eligible ways of using that money is testing. To us, I think in the fall, we estimated that we spent about $10 million on testing. But to me, that's money well spent of federal dollars, because that's allowed us to keep our campuses open in a safe and meaningful way when many big systems kept fully remote and stayed virtual. I think it was really important. I think, as our presidents would agree, that bringing some of our students back was important. We have the testing capacity because of SUNY Upstate, University of Albany, and others that have developed this testing. We should use it while we have it. It's affordable, it's highly effective, and it's allowed us to do more on our campuses, including, by the way, reopening our SUNYAC athletics. I don't think this would be happening today unless we had the testing capacity. They are discussing that. I'm going to turn that over to the man who knows more than that than I do. Yes, that's still an open question, especially out-of-state travel. We're trying to keep most of our travel to in-state in New York State right now, in conference right now, but there's always questions of out-of-conference play and championship. But let me turn it over to the commissioner.
Thank you, Jim. The SUNYAC right now, the way we're going to do it is there'll be postseason play. It's going to be in divisions to start, and then in the different sports, most of it will be a Final Four at different sites. It's going to be different with different sports, and then the NCAA championships are after that. Our schedule and our championships are all in the state of New York, so that plays well for us. And then when the time comes for the NCAA, we'll address that at that time with where the NCAA championships are. We'll have more about how that breakdown is and what it looks like for the championships in the future. So for the different sports, for the conference schedules right now, for like baseball and softball, it's 16 games. It's basically home and home doubleheaders within your division. Baseball is a little bit nuanced because there's only 7 teams, but the lacrosse is tennis, home and home doubleheaders, and then a discussion in non-conference. There'll be some non-conference allowed, but we're working through that plan right now. Sure. So in general, think of I-81, right, from the Pennsylvania border to the Canadian border, roughly. For a sport like men's lacrosse, where there's only 8 teams and where Buffalo State, Fredonia do not sponsor it, Cortland's in the west. Mostly Cortland would be in the east. So if you look at Oswego, west, Cortland, east, in general, that's where we're at.
Our whole approach at SUNY has been dictated by what our health experts are saying, developing a robust testing policy, and then opening more up as we're allowed to. I think athletics was one of those major areas that we heard from students. The arts is another area that we want to start focusing on, and other group activity on campus. I think as we get through this winter month, the remainder of the winter months, now Oswego, it's a little bit of a mix what winter bleeds into summer. I think that's like from August to August 15th, but more broadly, the more we can start opening up through testing, getting through the cold month of January and February, we started our semester later, I think we can start doing more of our activities on campus as long as our positivity rate low. I have been really enthusiastic and proud that even bringing more students back, our positivity rate has remained low, and that we could do these things. What we're finding, which is why we're able to do more, and we want to go beyond sports into more activities, we have not found real cases of in-class transmission of the virus. That's a good thing. I think our protocols mean that's working. You wear masks, you're socially distanced, you reduce the density. The NCAA has done studies too, as well, on athletics. They have found that there hasn't been transmission in competitive play. That's a good sign. Now let's focus on some of our other core areas. Let's get all the student experience as we can back up. This is a good precursor, I think, for us for the fall, which is what we're really focused on as well. But you have a good point, and Miles mentioned it. We have many seniors where this is really their last opportunity to experience college life, and this has been a really tough thing for them. So the more we can do, the more we would do as long as we can keep our positivity rate low. I'll turn over some of the details to specifics to President Stanley.
I just want to mention a couple of things. Yesterday, we opened all of our fitness centers. We moved all of the equipment to the arena in Marano. So if you walked by there, you will see all of the equipment there, and it's open to all of our students who, right now it's free for all of our students and our staff, and we have reduced rates. We want people to be in the center of campus. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because the positivity rate is very low, and people have been so good about following the rules, getting tested, and wearing masks and social distancing. All of our in-campus dining is open, and students are, of course, taking advantage of that. As we go along, we are opening up more of the campus, more opportunities for students in very small groups right now to get together with student activities. That will probably expand over time, but not yet. We're going to take baby steps because we have everyone to protect. But it's constantly on our mind that we will move forward. We will move forward in a very safe, logistical feasibility. All of that is taken into account, but we understand and feel for our students that this isn't an environment that can be maintained for a long period of time. We have to transform it back as appropriate, as safe as we go along.
We're going to approach athletics like we've approached COVID from any angle. You aggressively target the problem and you address the problem because you don't want that problem to spread on the campus as a whole. What we found with COVID is that when we think we're done, another curveball comes our way and we have to adapt. We had to adapt when it came to Thanksgiving break. I think we forget these things, right? Thanksgiving, in the spring of 2020, it was everybody in college should go home on Thanksgiving and then go remote for the remainder of the semester to limit transmission. 3 months into the semester, people said, my God, don't send any of the college students home during Thanksgiving because that's how the spread is happening. So we tested all of our students out. And I think that went extraordinarily well. We adapted. There are variants that keep getting thrown our way, the UK variant, the Brazilian variant, more transmissible. We adapt. We've adopted mask policies on campus at all time, regardless of social distancing. We increased the amount of testing that we're doing on our campuses. That has now allowed us to now target specific areas of problem, right? You don't have to take a draconian approach on our campuses with all the testing that we can do. We can target to specific areas. If cases arise among our student athletes, our obligation is to protect our student athletes' health first. And to stop the transmission, we'll adapt. We'll cancel those games, and we'll do those types of things needed in order to keep. We hope we can do that in a limited way as opposed to eliminating this, pausing the season for the entire league.
So there's no plan right now, like 10-day pause, 14-day pause,
No, I think what we're going to do is we have to be agile and nimble as the circumstances arise. We don't know every variation that could possibly pop up, but what I do know is if a problem does arise, we will aggressively address it. We did build into the plan a positivity rate, so if we see that positivity rate among our campuses start to tick up in a way that we're alarmed about, we will take actions. And by the way, many of my colleagues are here, and I just want to make sure I give them a chance to say whatever we may have missed. But right now on our campuses, it's not a cookie-cutter approach. Some of our campuses are limiting their in-person dining because they've seen issues. Some of our campuses have limited certain activities. That's what this is all about. So we're hoping by doing a smart approach like this, you can address those things and not have to worry about a worse outcome. You did have a question, sir, that we didn't answer. Practices for you. Your practices for your athletics.
Well, we're going to be led by our coaches, and for practices, the sports that are getting up and running, of course, they're going to be starting very shortly, if not immediately, because the schedule of play is starting at the end of March, and they have to be conditioned and they have to be ready for competition. We want that. Part of a safe environment is also that. As we address other sports, we're going to keep looking at the fall sports and winter sports and see what's appropriate. We don't know that we'll be moving in any of those directions at this moment because we have to look at the overall safety and our ability to have the facilities ready to handle any of that. Tom, do you want to answer that?
You got a question right there.
Can't hear you.
I think President Stanley was right. I think let's get these athletics up and running first. Let's see how that goes. And then let's open up more of the other sports as we can. I think we do have to take a more cautious approach just to see. This is a good test case. We're outdoors. Many of these sports are outdoors or in bigger facilities like this. And then hopefully we can get good energy on those other sports. I mean, ice hockey's been one of those issues, basketball, other things. Before we end, though, do any of our colleagues on the Hollywood Squares want to say anything? Did we miss anything before we start the competition? President Collison from Fredonia is a really good Hollywood Square player, so watch out for him. He's a ringer of sorts. Anything? They're normally not this speechless. I'll tell you, when I'm at a president's meeting, they have lots to say. But thank you for this. We're looking forward to this. Let's give a big round of applause to our student athletes for all that they've done. And let's have a really successful spring competition. Thanks a lot. Thank you.